Yo, partnership alert, partnership alert, partnership alert. Living Corporate has a partnership with LinkedIn Learning, an American massive open online course provider that provides video courses taught by industry experts across a wide array of subjects. Now, the partnership is because Living Corporate has courses on LinkedIn Learning focused on diversity, equity, inclusion for leaders, career professionals, and anyone really looking to upskill themselves and be better allies. So make sure you check out our courses on LinkedIn Learning by clicking the link in the show notes. And let's just say you don't want to do that. When you go to LinkedIn Learning on LinkedIn, search Living Corporate. We'll be right there. All right. Peace. What's up, y'all? It's Zach with Living Corporate, and man, so this has been a really cool series. Hopefully, if you've been keeping up, every other week, we've been having interviews with LiveRamp leadership, talking a bit about their DEI journey and how diversity, equity, and inclusion strategically fits and works at LiveRamp. But then also, you should be seeing, like, on those off weeks, there's some blogs, there's some media related to LiveRamp further, right? And so I just hope that y'all are paying attention. And if you're not, hey, I'm not even going to judge you. Click the link in the show note to know more about the LiveRamp campaign, and just keep up. You know what I'm saying? This conversation is super dope. We're about to get into because we're continuing. We're moving forward in this journey with LiveRamp. Y'all keep up. This conversation we had was dope because it was a panel really focused on the Black woman's experience at LiveRamp, and we talk about I try to stay out the way, to be honest. I mean, what am I talking about? I'm just really up to facilitate and let them speak, and hopefully you hear me do that. I'm not trying to talk over people who actually live the experience about what I think their experience is, which is, again, a lesson, something to note for some of y'all. Anyway, conversation for another time. The point is, I'm excited for y'all to listen to this. I think it should go without saying, but it does not go without saying, that Black women are the most mistreated group of people on the planet. And because so often they have to deal with way more nonsense, misogyny, racism, patriarchy, they have to deal with all these things so often that, it's the wisest thing we can do is listen to them. If they have a point of view, they're talking about experience because they know. And I just want to thank the panelists. This is a really dope conversation. And before we get into it, though, we're going to tap in with Tristan, but I cannot wait for y'all to hear it. See you soon.
What's going on, Living Corporate? It's Tristan, and I want to thank you for tapping back in with me as I provide some tips and advice for professionals. Today, let's talk about a couple of factors that will increase your chances of being seen by a recruiter on LinkedIn. Even though most of us know that LinkedIn is the largest professional social networking site on the internet, many people still sleep on how clutch LinkedIn can be when it comes to your career. The platform provides opportunities for people to network, land jobs, and build businesses. According to a 2020 study conducted by JobVite, 72% of recruiters utilize the platform to find and vet candidates. When I speak to people about LinkedIn, one of the first questions I'm asked is, how can I make sure that those recruiters actually find me? That's a great question. Let's talk about 3 factors that impact if you show up in recruiter searches. First up, similar to your resume, keywords are important. There are a couple of places that are search optimized where you can infuse keywords and skills throughout your profile. Your headline is the first section, next is your summary, the third is your experience, and the last is your skills section. Next is your location. Most recruiters run proximity-based searches when filling roles, as many prefer to hire local candidates over candidates in another city. If you're looking to move to an area, I always suggest changing the location on your profile to that city or metropolitan area. There's also the Open to Work feature that allows you to list up to 5 locations that you're interested in working in. The last factor is your level of engagement on the platform. LinkedIn tracks how active you are on the platform and sends more people your way if you post, comment, and message people using LinkedIn. They see this as an indicator that you are likely to respond to a recruiter if they message you. So, if you truly want to make sure a recruiter can find you on LinkedIn, make sure to take these factors into account. This tip was brought to you by Tristan of Layfield Resume Consulting. Check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Layfield Resume, or connect with me, Tristan Layfield, on LinkedIn.
Brittany, Sam, Ariana, what's going on, y'all?
Hey,
Not much. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Let me tell you something. You know, we typically do one-on-ones on Living Corporate, but then, you know, from time to time we'll do a panel. I'm excited that we have a bit of a different format today. I'm so what's the word? I don't want to say excited again, but I'm really looking forward to this conversation. LiveRamp, Black women in tech, Black women at LiveRamp. I recognize I'm a man, so my intention is to talk the least amount. All right.
Amen.
and listen, right?
And listen and be quiet. Absolutely. Right.
We'll help you out with that.
I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Yeah, I've been married for like 8 years. I'm finally starting to learn how to, you know what I'm saying, not talk so much, you know, and just kind of be quiet. And I got a little girl, and she's talking, she's talking quite a bit. She's 17 months old, so her name is Emery. She's talking all the time. Anyway, let's do this. Roundtable. I'm not going to pick on nobody. Let's talk about your journeys in tech and how each of y'all got into LiveRamp.
Okay. Well, I'll start. So I've never been in tech world. I mean, I've always been in corporate, but it's been more or less staffing. So this job just kind of landed in my lap. And when it landed in my lap, I had no idea what LiveRamp was until I started interviewing and hearing all the tech words. And I was just like, oh crap, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. I don't know anything about tech, you know. But working in HR, you really just pick up the concept. It's all about people. I mean, no matter what world it's in, it's just more or less about people. And so I'm still learning about the tech words and things like that, but that's just kind of how it landed in my lap. So
I will go next. So I always like to start out by saying I actually studied at music conservatory for college.
What did you
I
play?
went to
Or what
school
did you
for
sing?
classical guitar.
Okay.
I
I play
was the first.
classical tuba.
Nice. Very nice.
Very cool.
yeah,
Important.
yeah.
And for that reason, when I tell people that, they're like, okay, how the heck did you end up here? So I didn't want to be part of the typical performer struggle. So I made sure that I had a double major in business. And so my first role was actually in ad operations at Spotify. So that was my first job. And that is how I started in the ad tech world, in the tech space. And that led me to other opportunities, and that's why I ended up at LiveRamp.
Nice.
Nice.
I'll go last. It's only three of us. So my path was marketing and international business. So I did undergrad at University of Tennessee, and then I got my graduate degree at University of South Carolina. My path was always going to be like marketing, like manager, director, CMO. I was like marketing. I never really thought about tech. I was more into like beauty. But then when I was working prior to LiveRamp, I was at State Farm headquarters in Bloomington, Illinois, working as a marketing manager. I led our performance marketing team. So I ran a $250 million ad budget. I worked with all the partners in the industry. And so I had to learn those tech terms pretty quickly. Always wanted to live in New York. That was like my dream. So I'm meeting with my LiveRamp rep, Julia Scribner, and she said, hey, do you want to be poached? I said, yes. And so she's like, we only have sales roles. I was like, whatever. I love LiveRamp. I love New York. And then I was like, I already know everything about LiveRamp. And then I got here and I was like, I know nothing about LiveRamp. And
Right,
I know nothing about tech, but now, I mean, like, it's a great environment, a great culture. So I'm in it now. And so I think I'm good.
That's so cool. You know, as I hear each of y'all talk about, you know, your stories, none of them are traditional or the ways that, I don't know, like popular media seems to kind of like describe getting into tech. It sounds as if each of y'all were really engaged in your purpose, whatever that was at the time, and then things happened to just work together, you know, to get here. You know, I'm curious, as you're pivoting and as you've pivoted into LiveRamp, and then of course you know, y'all been Black your whole lives. We're in this season.
True story.
True
Right?
story. Facts.
Right? Yeah. So like we're in this season where like publicly supporting Black women seems to be in vogue, right? So you have, Black women on front covers of magazines. You have different types of VC grants. Not enough of them, to be clear. It's only I think 0.2 or 3% of all VC investments are Black women. But anyway, the point is there's more things happening in the public sphere. I got it. Public sphere around supporting Black women. I'm curious for y'all, what is the difference between real and performative support for Black women at work?
Yeah, so I guess I'll start. In my experience, it's really what your actions say. And I think in the tech space, I will say this as a blanket statement, but I think it's just very easy to say and then not do and kind of hide in the shadows again. And performative kind of activism to me looks like, making sure that you join an employee resource group, making sure you're going to TED Talks and chats about, racism and, or diversity and inclusion in the workplace. And then, in your own life and when you're in your own influence, not using your power, if you have it, to amplify the voices of women of color. And because, it is quite rare to find Black women in the tech space, we mostly have white leaders. And it's interesting being a manager now and working alongside these women as peers who in my past life, in my past roles, in my past
You've been
roles,
here before.
I'm not dead. I've not been reincarnated. In my past roles have actually, made it a point to kind of keep me from progressing and growing. My growth and my talent was usually seen as a threat. And I think I have at LiveRamp found people who use their power and influence to make sure that they're leaving space and growth paths for women of color and making sure that they have the same resources allocated to them that, I think we're really not used to seeing.
Yeah, I would say that's a good point. I mean, it's one thing to talk about it and to do an Instagram post about it. It's another thing to be about it. So from where I sit on the sales side, I mean, I'm all about performance, all about numbers, all about, and having fun. But I want to do everything in my power for my performance to stand alone. But if I have to raise my hand, I don't want to raise my hand and say something's not right. But if I do raise my hand, I'm doing it because something has been going on a long time, that it's getting in the way of my performance. And for me, what a real support from leadership looks like is saying, we hope that's not what's happening, but your concern could be valid, and let's talk about it. What's happening? Why are you being treated this way? Who was it? Let's explore it. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. I don't want to call HR. I don't want to raise my hand and say I'm different. But I think real support is more than just Black women are cool, let's support them. It's also something might not be right. And if it's not right, how do we fix it? How do we hear it? How do we make sure everyone's treated equally?
And kind of going off of that point, that's a great point that you made. Another key difference is, microaggressions, right? Mm-hmm. And so, Brittany, to your point about not wanting to be the one to raise your hand, it's like we're put in positions where we have to do that. And then when we do that, it's just like, okay, well, you're the angry Black woman who's being aggressive and AKA advocating for herself. And it's like, well, if you're about it, though, then one, you wouldn't see that as a stereotype that everyone else does. And you would see that as just that self-advocacy and trying to, get your performance noticed just like everybody else. Mm-hmm. And it's like I was put in a position where, you weren't just naturally going to call on me in the sea of my white counterparts. I have to make sure that I'm here and that I'm noticed. Mm-hmm. And don't use that against me either.
Right. Yeah. Right. And I agree too. I think, being in corporate America almost 20 years, I've been labeled as feisty, sassy, aggressive. And, and I had to learn okay, that's overshadowing my talent and skills because my white counterpart didn't see, they didn't hear anything I said because they focused on my delivery. And so I had to become unapologetic and say, okay, I'm not going to change who I am. I mean, as long as I'm professional, I'm not going to change who I am. I mean, I'm no different than the white man over here who's yelling and cussing at the peer, at his peer.
Talk
I'm
about
no
it.
different. I'm no different.
Mhm.
I'm just a different color than you. And so I became unapologetic, and I've had experience where being to say, you're just coming off aggressive. I said, okay, but did you hear what I said? So I'm not going to apologize to it. And I think too, is that I don't expect our white peers to be able to know, but I always say just seek to understand instead of making assumptions. And that to me says volumes when you're really seeking to try to understand the Black and brown people and to do what you can to help us in the workplace versus making assumptions and letting our aggressiveness overshadow our talent and skills. So that's for me.
I would just say I agree. We don't have the luxury of unawareness. Just know, like, from a Black woman's perspective, everything we do, we're thinking about it. How's it going to come off? Did I, like, I probably don't have the luxury of being late, and you do. Everything is like, I'm just thinking about it 2 or 3 times just to make sure am I doing the best that I can do, how I'm doing it, and following the rules and all that stuff. And not everyone has to think about that all the time. So I just want that to be aware, people to know that.
Yeah. And going off of that, I think in the tech space, we easily fall into the kind of colorblind mentality where it's just like working at tech companies for me and Spotify being my first role. Like, I kind of felt like it was first day of orientation at college. Like, that is very much like kind of how the culture comes across.
Yeah.
And because of that, it's just like, oh, like, we're all here for the same purpose. We care about the culture. Like, we accept you for who you are. But I think it's dangerous because then it kind of removes accountability for making sure that there are, healthy and inclusive structures in place. And I think you guys both made good points about, white counterparts just being insecure and acknowledging that there is a difference. There just is. And I think unfortunately we tend to stick out like sore thumbs. I'm like, I'm sorry that makes you uncomfortable, but I think the first step is to acknowledge that there's a difference. It's not okay, but it is okay to do the necessary education and realize your privilege and realize like what you can do with it.
Exactly.
And it can be used for good.
Yeah, it can.
It's interesting, and I've been saying this like it's kind of like a joke, but it's not. Like, seems like white folks got a conscience around Black humanity ever since they saw George Floyd being murdered on camera. But we've been like, this is like, it's not a new thing. So I wonder, like, what is it about? Anyway, so folks would reach out to me and they would say like, well, can we, what about a mentorship program, or like, we can like coach you for this. And I finally, I was on some podcast, and it was this white woman's podcast who is great, Lori Ruderman. But anyway, I told her, I said, the thing about it is, what white people, Lori, you included, need to understand is that Black folks don't actually need your advice or your guidance. We just need your things. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
we need your
you know what I'm saying? We just need the stuff, right?
Yeah.
There's a proven historical, quantitatively measurable, like, huge chunk of time that we can point at and show that Black folks have continued to do, particularly Black women, do way more with just a little bit of something. So what would it look like if we actually had an equitable amount of resources to execute? So we don't really need you to tell us. We already know what you're trying to coach us on. We've been known that, right? Like, we don't actually need you to tell us that. Like, we have to, like, to the whole point I heard a lot about, just, and even in what y'all were just saying, is like hyper awareness. Right? We don't just, Black women don't just do things to do them. There's like 3 or 4 different 5, 6 fiddle calculations that go into even the email that you write.
Yeah, right.
Let alone like what you wear, and like you're like, don't get me started on that, on your hair, like everything, how you even present yourself.
Oh yeah,
there's
a different story.
so much thought that happens. Right. There's so much that happens, and so we don't really need you to tell us what to do. Give us your resources.
And we don't need more mentorship programs.
No.
And I think at a lot of these institutions that they're used as almost like figureheads or placeholders to say that we have a diversity program, but then it's like,
it's okay,
so there's a job, right. It's a checkbox. There's a job open. I have the qualifications. I have the receipts. Put me in the job.
Yeah.
Don't tell me we have a development program that will kind of, groom you to be ready for this position. It's just like, I'm ready now.
Yeah. What are you grooming me for? To not be so black? Like,
And
what is it? Like,
right.
yeah.
And Zach, to your point, like this is not new to us. We did not start thinking about this stuff just because we entered a corporate space. To some extent, I think we've all been brought up with it. And I know personally, my parents have always, reminded me that I have to work twice as hard to have half of what my white counterparts have.
Yeah.
And that journey is exhausting.
It is.
But it's one that I think you internalize very early on. And you, in a way become empowered by, but it's still okay to admit that is tiresome.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
You reach a point where you've had enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I've had some conversations, and I've told some folks flat out, I said, when we talk about diversity inclusion programs, or we talk about like increasing representation, or we talk about increasing pipeline, and the first thing you default to is like a coaching program or mentorship program, I said, that's racist, right? That's racist, because the implication is, these black folks not really that smart. We got to get them up to speed, and then they'll be worthy of placement in the manager program, or placement in the executive level, or placement in the C-suite, or whatever the case is. When the reality is, again, like, I don't know, I continue to marvel at what we choose to read and not read about us, our own history. Like, we've been performing. What we don't have is opportunity. Now, you said something, Sam. I'm not going to skate away from this. You said you trying to train us to be less white, and I have said that. Now, this is a LiveRamp sponsored podcast, so I'm not going to use the term, but I will after we get off this recording. I'm going to tell y'all the term I'll be using for that, because they do try to de-blackify us sometimes.
They do.
I do.
They do. Right? It's like this coaching and development program. It's like, I'm trying to train you to be less black and more like me, because in their eyes, they're good. They made it. They're good. They're polished. We need the polishing and the grooming in their eyes, and that's where I'm just like, no, I have the same qualifications. I don't need your grooming or your polishing up. So yeah.
That's why I always push hard for okay, like at my last job at State Farm, what are the boxes? I've walked in saying I want to be a manager, but I'm an analyst right now. What are the boxes I need to check? I had to go take these tests, I had to do all this stuff. I'm like, give me boxes, I'll check boxes. None of this is subjective. And they did that, and I checked the boxes, and there was some extra items, and then then it all worked out, long story short. But when you make it more objective, and you make it the same for everyone, and you make the rules clear, and you publish the rules, then I feel good. I don't feel like it's a race thing. I feel like it's attainable, and then I can hold you accountable to the rules you created. When it's like, he's just been here forever, he's just great. Don't you? I think he's great. You think he's great? He should manage everything. Like, I have a problem with
that. Yeah. And I think too, from an HR perspective, is that, I hear leaders say, well, they're not a good culture fit, or their personality, I'm like, what does that mean? What qualifications do they have? Have they met the qualifications? You say, have they, checked all the boxes? I mean, I don't know what personality or culture fit means. What does that mean? In your world, that's a different story than in my eyes. So I'm going to stay away from that, and we're not going to going to disregard that, and let's focus on their skills and their talents.
Yep. The whole idea of culture fit has just been so dangerous.
Yes.
And it really just means,
they're not like me.
Do I want to be best friends with this person outside of work?
Do I want to go to happy hour with them?
Like, that's really what it is. And people, I mean, I've worked with hiring managers who have said that. And, roundtable discussions after interviewing a candidate, it's like, well, they seem like really dope. I think we could easily hang out with them. And I'm just like, why are we hanging out with them?
Yeah.
Like, can they do the job?
Can we just focus
like,
on
it's
the
great
work,
if we have
the 8 to 5 part?
Right. Like, can they do the job? What does their resume say? I noticed that this person doesn't have the proper qualifications to be successful in this role. I'm sorry that they happen to be white.
Yeah.
But, and I've been in situations where I'm like, well, we have this woman or this man, and, I see initiative in this resume. I see drive. I see willingness to learn. Might not have the degree that you wanted from the place that you wanted, but I know this person can come in the door and kill it.
Yeah.
This person happens to be a person of color. What are we really talking about now?
Exactly.
what's the
Exactly.
culture fit?
Yeah.
Because I was like, I see diversity of perspective, thought, and race and ethnicity. How is this not adding to a team that you say you want to build? Ask yourself the real questions.
The difference is what builds the team. Everyone brings a different skill set. That's what builds it, and that's what makes a team thrive. So
It's so interesting, right? Even in this whole, like, to your statement earlier, Ariana, around diversity of thought, diversity of skill set, diversity of education, and how white folks create extra lenses and language and arguments to really like dismiss black and brown experience or dismiss black and brown representation. Because, like, the truth of the matter is, we know that a black or a brown person is going to have diverse thought, perspective, and experience juxtaposed to their white counterpart. Like, we don't even have to like go down these like intellectual rabbit holes. Like, we know that. To that end, I'm actually curious. I'm gonna speak as a man, a black man, and a man, not but a man, and a man. I engage in corporate spaces, and sometimes I feel like generationally there's challenge. There's challenge sometimes when I try to reach out to like Gen X or baby boomer black folks to help me and like kind of reach back. I feel like there's sometimes a divide, and I'm curious, what experience or do y'all have in receiving support or reaching back to kind of like lift as you climb for other black women at work?
It's a great question. I would say so. In my roles, anyone who wants to reach out to me who's new, I'm always open to mentorship. Usually, as much as I can, when there's a new person, I reach out, say, "Hey, welcome to LiveRamp," or whatever company I've been at. The opposite way, I probably haven't done that much outreach at LiveRamp itself, but definitely at State Farm, I reached out to leaders of color just to understand their journey, especially women. Everyone was very open. I don't know. I think a lot of people are open to have a chat and to meet and to give advice, but I don't know if people are in a room saying, "Have you met her? Have you talked to her? We have this thing coming up, her name." I don't know if they're advocating. They're friendly and they're open, but I can't tell if they're a sponsor,
And similar to that point, what I've experienced is that, if I do find, Black people at a company who are in higher positions, who like seemingly do have the influence and the power to, mentor you and help lift you up, I quickly realize that they're still climbing themselves. And I think I have to be really real for a second and just say, like, it's unfortunate that regardless of the hierarchy and the level that you're coming in at, it's still a fight with each other. Like, there's still definitely direct competition with Black women in particular to fill these roles because it's not easy for anyone. And I think, if we had real pipelines to develop people from entry level straight out of college to upper management, then you are more willing to make time and space to bring up people underneath you. And I think, unfortunately, like, we're just still at a time where there's just not, the numbers just aren't there. And I think, something that I've tried to be very aware of just as a hiring manager is being very transparent about this in the interview process as well. Because I think, I have a few Black people on my team, which I'm very proud of. And something that they've asked me, especially if they interview on site, is just like, what's LiveRamp's plans for diversifying the pipeline? I'm not really seeing a lot of people like me. And it's just like, look, I'm very happy that I was given the opportunity to become a manager, and I don't take that lightly. And this is what I'm personally doing to make sure that I have room left for y'all. But I get that it's a privilege, even as a Black woman in a tech space at LiveRamp, to be able to have that time and resources to kind of develop my own program within my own purview. And I just don't think a lot of people have gotten that opportunity.
That's crazy that it feels like there are limited spots. I mean, the way you talk about it, it's like the NFL and there are only so many spots. And it's like, what? There are plenty of manager positions, and frankly, companies reorganize. Like, now it's like every month they reorganize, it's like organize into some more positions. But
And why is it that each team is only comfortable having like one or a couple Black people.
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
it's
don't
just like you
overload it
start
with
out
too
with a
many Black
few,
people.
but not if there's a bunch, because y'all are going to be in the cafeteria laughing and cackling together.
At the water cooler.
I've literally been told before that
Really?
there's a group of people who sit in the cafeteria, Black people, and you know, you guys are laughing and having a great
Being
time,
loud,
and it's making people and
uncomfortable.
it's making people uncomfortable.
Mhm.
I said, first of all, this was a boss that I used to have. I said, please name the people. I want her to name each one so I can say we're all Black, and what are we doing? Eating lunch like everybody else.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
Living.
saying. Living.
Whoa.
And because of experiences like that, Brittany, similar to what you were saying before, it's sad because we end up competing against each other, and then it's like, you know, I don't want to be in a space where I'm scared to like associate with other Black people because of like the implications that my white counterparts are projecting onto us.
Yeah, and I can relate to, and again, I'm HR, so I'm kind of different because I have to stay in the middle. I have to be unbiased. I have to be objective. And so if I reach out to too many Black people or make myself too accessible to too many Black people, then my white counterparts are going to feel like, okay, she's showing favoritism or she's sticking to her kind or whatever. And so I have to really stay in the middle. But, you know, I feel like in my career, I've treated everybody right. I haven't discriminated. I've done right by anyone. And if I, you know, connect with a Black person, I just hoping that they share and say, hey, Sam is a good confidant for you to talk to or what have you. And they kind of meet me in the middle with that. But it's kind of hard because sometimes I do want to just come over here to the Black side, but I have to stay in the middle so I won't be perceived as showing favoritism. So it's a different situation for me.
Well, I gotta tell you on Sam's behalf, because Sam and I work closely together, and you know, HR stuff is hard, so it's not always for the best situations, the best reasons. But it is so nice to have a Black woman in this role where we could just keep it real, especially when we have to talk about things that are not easy to discuss.
Yes.
And she gets where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
She understands my thought process. She understands what I'm up against. And it's just really helpful, and she does it while being unbiased. So kudos to you.
Thank you. I you know, that's a good thing about it is that when I do connect with a Black person, I definitely can relate and understand the situation and have the conversations with you that I may not be able to have with the white counterpart. So definitely. So thank you.
Shout out to all the Black HR folks who are kinfolk and not just kinfolk. You know what I'm talking about. Because sometimes,
Oh, yeah. But to your point, Ariana, sometimes you feel like, and I never really consciously thought of it like that, but sometimes you feel like you be pigeonholed if you try to connect with Black people. Or sometimes you feel, and I do feel sometimes Black people feel like they have to put up a front in that I'm going to be less friendly to you so I can have, you know, so I can feel fit in elsewhere, which is so ridiculous to even say it like that. But I think we feel a lot of pressure that we're being watched all the time. And so that people react to that in different ways when really we should just be going to work and doing our jobs. But it was like, we can't because of all this ancillary stuff.
Right. And, you know, I think all three of us on this call are members of Black at LiveRamp, which is an ERG that we just started a year ago. And it definitely turned some heads when people joined, because then it was just like, like, I thought you were just happy to like be here and like have a job. Like, why do you need this sense of agency? Like, are you not happy with what you're getting? And it's just like, why can't people just say like, this might not be something that I understand, but I support? Why are you threatened by my need to have community? Oh, it's because you're used to being in the majority. Okay.
I'll weigh in. I was debating whether to say this, but it feels like a very safe space. But you know, I'm part of Black at LiveRamp. I'm part of all the things, and I understand, like, from an ERG perspective, anyone should be able to join any ERG. The openness, I'm all about it. But I'm also also very busy, so I go to stuff. I don't go to stuff. I should go to more stuff. But last week, I went to the Black Mental Wellness monthly session for the first time, and honestly, I went because in the email. Or the Slack message, there was a note that said, this is if you identify as Black. And something about that made me relax and that, like, I don't know, it was just, I just didn't want to be in another group where like sometimes I feel like when you don't identify as the group and you're in the group thing, you're like there to watch us.
You have to
And that's not
observe,
relaxing to
yeah.
me.
Yeah, you kind of got to still be guarded in what you say because you don't
Which
want to
defeats the
come. Yeah,
purpose.
yeah, exactly.
Well, it's tough. And like just
Yeah.
speaking as like one of the co-presidents, like I'm gonna keep it real. Like we had to do that because, you know, I also led the ERG at Spotify, and since Black people are the fewest in number, in order to get the same resources as
Mm.
the other ERGs, there's power in numbers, and so most of your group is going to be allies.
Mhm.
But it's difficult when you think about like
Right.
what the purpose of the ERG is, and that is to create a safe space of community for people who
Yeah.
identify as Black. And so with those mental health calls, we're just like, how can we, you know, talk about mental health explicitly and
Mhm.
openly if we are amongst people who cannot relate to our experience?
Yeah, and what was interesting, it wasn't even that I had something like dramatic to say. It was just like, cool,
No.
I'm just gonna be here and hang out. We talked about Simone Biles, talked about a lot of stuff, and but I don't have to be on. Like I don't have to like think, how am I gonna say this? I need to say a certain word. I mean, it's just like, oh, okay, we just hang out and be relaxed.
Yeah,
Right.
And
Also Simone Biles.
it was nice.
Yeah, can we talk
Yeah.
about like how much Simone
Oh.
Biles' experience just projects into like our everyday lives at work? Because
exactly.
let me tell you, the reaction that white people had to her was just like, well, what's the matter with you?
You need to
Like,
suck
why
it
can't you
up. You
perform
knew
for
this.
us?
Yeah, you knew this before you got into this. And I'm just like,
What do you mean
man.
you have mental health issues?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Explain it to us. Pick it apart.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, okay, well, this feels quite real. Why don't Black women take more sick days? For
Yeah.
the same reasons.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
This is deep. This is deep stuff. We gotta hang
Yep.
out more often. I'm like, I need to hang out with you guys. I'm like,
Yeah.
What's going on? We need to make this a
Good.
recurring series. What we need to do.
I think we do.
Put a little section. For real. And I'll just sit back and go, I ask a couple of
You're
probing
right.
questions and be quiet. So it's interesting. You know, one, this has been an incredible dialogue. You know, I gave y'all's word that I would respect y'all's time. Side note, for those listening to this at LiveRamp and outside LiveRamp, respect Black women's time. You know what I mean? Like in general, just in life. You know, you schedule a meeting, you book the time, show up on time, and finish the meeting on time.
Yeah.
All right?
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? You say you're gonna do something, just do what you said. Don't respect the time.
Do what you say and
We
say what
all
you
have
mean.
we all have a limited amount of it. You can't get it back. So, all right. With that being said, last question for everybody here. Big question. And it's a two-part question. All right. So first of all, what are you most proud of at LiveRamp right now? And then what would you say stands to need the most change at LiveRamp?
So most proud of, I'm gonna do a two-part. Most proud of LiveRamp as a company. I really do believe in our position in the tech ecosystem and what we're doing. And I've worked with a lot of different tech partners in my roles, client side and otherwise. And I just feel like we're ahead of the game. The way we're thinking about it, the way we're bringing companies together, I'm very impressed and proud to be a part of that. And then the other proud, just personally at LiveRamp, for me to go into a sales role at such a dynamic company and to see success. I'm really proud of myself to be able to do that, and for LiveRamp taking a chance on someone who has never been in a sales role before. So love that. As far as what could be improved, I think it's like Ariana, like seeing more people like me in management. It's cool that we're being more accountable and we have these calls where we talk about the report. But let me tell you, the first time I saw that diversity report and they went through the different ethnicities, and Black was this little bitty blue line. It was just this tiny little line. I was like, there's just, I think I'm the only person. Like who? And then I started going through Workday. I'm like, who's Black at LiveRamp? I don't even know. And so, it's good we're aware. It's good that we're working on it. But I want to see people who look like me and roles and speaking at Ramp Up, being in leadership roles, having influence on the Zooms, on the all hands. Like I just want to see, I'm going to feel more open to be open when I see more people who look like me.
Brittany, I definitely agree. I'm proud of LiveRamp's product. I think I'm proud that we are, you know, still the leaders in our product and in the industry. And I am happy to work alongside people who are motivated by that and seek to keep it going. It's just one, it's great job security. But two, I think it just creates a very energetic and positive work environment. I'm also proud of, I think, just the trust that I think has been put in me as an employee of the company, with, me being a Black woman, with my, past career choices. I became a manager 6 months into this job, coming in as an IC in a department that was brand new, and I got to build a team from scratch. And I am happy that I work alongside people who recognize my accomplishments, acknowledge my strengths, um, support and develop my weaknesses, and are just not threatened at the fact that I have clout at this company and that I'm listened to and that I am heard. Um, I think in terms of improvement, I think we've come a long way in terms of acknowledging that diversity, Brittany, to your point, is something that we need to work on. Because I think as of last year, I was one of 3 Black people managers in the whole company.
See, I don't even know,
Yeah. Which is an appalling number. And I think we only had like 15 to 20 Black people out of like 1,500. And I was like, there's work to be done. And basically I said this on a panel with the CEO present. And I was just like, I hope I don't get fired after saying this. But I was just like, we have to acknowledge, it's uncomfortable, but we have to acknowledge that a lot of hiring managers at this company are choosing to hire people that they're comfortable with, who look like them, who, let's be real, do not always have the qualifications needed for the job. And you know that because you have to work with some of these people.
I know that too. I see it firsthand.
And I think, it's an uncomfortable space for us to be in, but we have the resources to correct those numbers and reflect what the world looks like today. And I would also like to see LiveRamp show more comfort in speaking out against racism in America. If you're going to have a higher number of people of color at this company, you need to acknowledge what we go through when we, virtually sign off from work these days, but when we're back in the office, when we leave this office. Last summer was very telling in terms of what people were comfortable with and what they weren't. When the whole George Floyd thing was happening, I wasn't out there protesting because COVID was very real.
Right.
But I couldn't necessarily show up and talk about, identity links, Brittany, in a meeting when
People
I'm just like out here trying not to get killed,
Right. I'm sorry to jump in, but just what you said, I couldn't believe I had people ask me, are you going to go protest? I want to be like, you've heard of COVID, right? Like, I am Black, but I also want to be alive. I was like, I can't even, managers had calls with everyone to make sure people are okay. I get that, but I was like, but okay, I'm going to be the only Black person in this call. Are they going to ask me questions? I don't want that to happen. No one did, thank goodness. But then it's also like the expectation. I'm like, I've got to be Black. I got to do my job and I got to not get sick. So anyway, you can keep going. I just want to throw that in.
No. And to your point, like, just because we're not out protesting doesn't mean that we're not angry, and it doesn't mean that we're not affected. And you're asking me if I'm okay, but then you're still asking me if I can squeeze in like 3 meetings today that weren't previously scheduled before. So like, it's my time and my mental health really being valued here?
Right.
And also, I was like, I see other tech companies releasing emails, tweets, statements about supporting the Black community, whether that's performative or not. I was like, I haven't heard anything from y'all. And, I know I'm not the only person who has said this, and I think we still have a lot of work to do in terms of addressing our discomfort with taking a stand with certain things. And I think once that starts to happen a bit more, I will only feel more confident in, LiveRamp as an organization.
So for me, there's 2 things. So I think one of the things I'm proud of is that I have an awesome manager, Melissa Glover. She's a white lady. And what I love about her is that she admits, she's like, Sam, I don't understand what you're going through, but we could talk about it, help me understand. And she's definitely open-minded. She don't make any judgments. And, You know, she's just very easy to talk to about situations when I'm dealing with, just as a Black woman. I'm like, look, I don't feel comfortable with doing this. And it's because I'm a Black woman. She's like, hey, I don't understand, but I'm going to support you. And sometimes that's all it takes, is someone to support you and admit that, you know, I don't understand. I can't relate what you're going through, but help me understand, educate me so I can know. I think the second thing is the diversity and inclusion program that we're working on. That's ramping up. We still have a long way to go, but being a part of that makes me feel good, because I can be impactful on the policies that we develop, making sure that everyone is getting fairly treated across the board or what have you. The only thing I think that we need to work on, I think, Brittany, maybe you said that, but I think that because there's not a lot of Black people in the company, is bringing on more Black people is going to cause people to get outside of their comfort zone and get used to that, and having to be a part to really just educate them and really teach them, like, hey, it's okay. We're not scary Black people. We're not here to hurt you. You know, we're just here to get our chance in the world just like you have it. So I think that's the thing that we really have a long ways to go, especially getting into leadership roles, is leadership not making that assumption about Black women, Black men, or what have you, but just really educating them on that we can be a good resource and good, you know, just as good as you are. So I think that's one of the things that we have a long way to work on. So
I'll say this is, first of all, this has been a great conversation. And before we wrap up and I say my goodbyes and my thank yous to LiveRamp and everything, I will say it is important for organizations to not only have and make appropriate public statements, because they do have employees that work there, and beyond even if you have an all-white company, these are still humanitarian issues. So we should speak to these things, period, because they impact all of us as human beings. But the reality of white supremacy, patriarchy, capitalism, and misogyny, you know, kind of tribalize us in ways that are unproductive. But I'm just saying, ideally, you would speak on these things anyway. And Ariana, I agree that those statements should happen, and they should be paired with tangible, practical, sustainable policies and procedures for that company to enact to actually create inequity, inclusion, organizational justice. So,
Absolutely.
listen, people ask, like, what does Live in Corporate do? Live in Corporate, we create content that centers and amplifies Black and brown folks at work. I'm so proud of this panel, of this conversation. Shout out to LiveRamp. Listen, y'all in charge. Y'all heard what's going on over here. I'm not going to cut these edits out, and I'm not cutting out this part either. Thank you so much to Brittany, Ariana, and Sam. And shout out to LiveRamp. This is one of a few different leadership spotlight series we're doing. Live in Corporate and LiveRamp. We will catch y'all soon. Thank y'all. Y'all can all come back now. Y'all don't have to come back as LiveRamp. Let's come back and talk. All right. Don't be strangers.
yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
we'll hold you to it.
Love
We
to.
will.
Yeah.
Thank you, Zach.
Thanks.
All right, y'all. Peace. And we're back. Yo, super cool conversation. You know, like last week I was talking about LiveRamp's willingness to have uncomfortable conversations to just keep it real. And that willingness to do that helps us just really create dope content at Live in Corp. Like, that's what we're here for, right? Like, I don't want to just have a really cool brand on and be like, oh, we had this company, we work with them, but like, we didn't really, you know what I'm saying, like, get to the meat of anything. Like, we're just kind of playing the dance, like doing the dance. That's not our vibe. That's not our steed. So again, like, I'm really, I walked away from this conversation just feeling seen and feeling appreciative that there's a space and culture where folks can feel like they can be themselves and even speak so candidly and frankly about their experience. And so, you know, I want to thank LiveRamp again. If you haven't caught up again on the series that we got going on with LiveRamp, click the link in the show notes, take you to everything. You want to learn more about each of the panelists, make sure you click the links in the show notes. Okay. We'll catch you soon. Make sure to give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Till next time, this has been Zach. Peace.
Living Corporate is a podcast by Living Corporate LLC. Our logo was designed by David Dawkins. Our theme music was produced by Ken Brown. Additional music production by Antoine Franklin for Musical Elevation. Post-production is handled by Jeremy Jackson. Got a topic suggestion? Email us at livingcorporatepodcast@gmail.com. You can find us online on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and living-corporate.com. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned.